Under the island, Tony walked into his most restricted lab, the one place even Natasha and the widows weren't allowed to enter. It's a big lab that covered hundreds of meters under the island, and it took Tony 7 months to build that place because it wasn't that easy to work underwater while hiding. This was where he worked on the impossible, the doors sealed shut behind him, reinforced with layers of titanium and energy shielding. No one could break in. No one could spy, because what he was building here, it wasn't just for the world. It was for himself. Tony leaned against the cold metal counter, rubbing his temples. The headache was back. It had disappeared years ago after that one conversation. But now? It was creeping in again, stronger than before, and something else had changed. His connection to technology was growing. At first, it was just a feeling, an awareness of the machines around him. But now? Now he could control them. Move them with a thought. Like a technomancer. He clenched his fists. He knew what was happening. He didn't have much time. Pushing off the headache, he moved inside. Before him were massive monitors, flickering with streams of data, holographic blueprints of a spacecraft hovering in mid-air. This was it, Project Starfire, the project he had been working on for years. A ship unlike anything on Earth, not a simple rocket. Not a modified military-grade vehicle. A true deep space vessel, built to withstand the cosmic radiations that no human technology had ever dared to face. Tony exhaled, gripping the edge of the table. His head throbbed, but he pushed it aside. He was too close now. Project Starfire, progress so far, heavy checkmark power source. Tony had designed a new arc reactor, capable of supplying unlimited energy to the spacecraft. It would power the ship's engines, weapons, defense systems, and life support, making it completely self-sufficient in deep space. Heavy checkmark engine development, 40% complete. The spacecraft's engine was designed to draw power directly from the arc reactor. It would allow long-range space travel without relying on fuel. The challenge now was optimizing its efficiency to withstand high-speed interstellar movement and extreme conditions. Heavy checkmark cosmic radiation research. Tony had been studying cosmic radiation absorption and manipulation, testing how it interacted with different materials. Understanding this would be key to future enhancements for both the ship and its crew. Heavy checkmark crew selection. He had been monitoring Susan Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm. Without Reed Richards, they never reached their full potential. Tony planned to bring them into something far greater. What he still needed, crossmark testing ground. The island was too risky. He needed a vast open space, a desert or remote area, where he could build, test, and launch the ship without destroying his base operations. Crossmark final engine components. The technology he needed didn't exist yet. He had to build it from scratch, and he needed more resources. Crossmark recruitment. The Storms and Ben Grimm didn't know it yet. They were busy working on their own projects. Present time. Tony sat on the chair and resumed working on one of the most crucial parts of his project. The holographic blueprint of the cosmic radiation containment chamber flickered before him, lines of code shifting as he refined its design in real time. This was the key. Cosmic radiation wasn't just dangerous, it was unpredictable. Tony knew that exposure to certain cosmic waves could trigger genetic anomalies, but he wasn't interested in mutations. He wanted control. If he could trap, harness, and weaponize a portion of cosmic radiation, he'd be on the verge of unlocking a new energy source, one that could change the world and bring evolution. But there was a problem. Cosmic radiation didn't behave like any other energy on Earth. It wasn't like electricity, nuclear power, or even gamma radiation. It was something older, rawer, almost alive, which meant he had to build something capable of containing the uncontrollable. Tony rubbed his temples. The headache was worse now. He took out a bottle from his pocket and popped out 2 pills and swallowed it with a bit of water. Then he continued to focus on the task, the cosmic radiation containment chamber. Progress, heavy checkmark energy field stabilization, completed. Tony created a customized force field matrix, capable of shifting between different frequencies to contain cosmic radiation without breaking. This would allow controlled exposure instead of full-blown disaster. Heavy checkmark vibranium alloy shielding, concept phase lack of vibranium. Heavy checkmark quantum energy dampeners, concept phase. If cosmic radiation had unpredictable energy surges, he needed something to neutralize those spikes before they could destroy the containment field. Heavy checkmark AI controlled adjustments. 70% complete the chamber would need an AI smarter than any existing system to predict radiation shifts before they happen. Hermes and Elena were advanced, but Tony was already upgrading the AIs even further. 10 p.m. The blue glow of holographic displays flickered across Tony's face as he stared at the intricate schematics of the cosmic radiation containment chamber. His fingers twitched slightly, subconsciously adjusting the design in real time. He barely noticed, his mind was running on overdrive, pushing through exhaustion as usual. Then, his comms beeped. Yelena, Stark. It's 10 p.m. Get your ass up here. You need food. Tony blinked, his gaze flicking to the time display on one of the screens. 10:04 p.m. Hadn't it just been 6 p.m.? He sighed, running a hand through his hair before responding. Tony, I'm in the middle of something. Yelena, I don't care. You can science yourself to death later. Eat first. Tony, I'm fine. Yelena, really? Because according to your biometric monitor, your stress levels are spiking, your heart rate is slightly elevated, and I bet you haven't taken a proper breath in the last 5 minutes. Tony rolled his eyes. He forgot that Yelena still had access to his vitals. He gave her that access a year ago after she wouldn't shut up about how he had the habits of a gremlin. And he needed someone to keep an eye on his health other than his AI. Now she used it against him. Yelena, get up. Here. Now. Tony exhaled through his nose. She wasn't going to let this go. Tony, fine. Yelena, good. Also, I made dinner. If you don't show up, I'll feed it to the widows instead. Tony, bribery? Really? Yelena, I learned from the best. Tony snorted. Alright, that was fair. Shutting down the console, he stretched, rolling his stiff shoulders. His body protested the sudden movement. He had been sitting for way too long that he reached for his pills again, pausing just as he popped the cap open. Then, with a sigh, he put the bottle back down. No, not now. Stuffing his hands into his pockets, he turned toward the elevator leading up to the main facility. Flashback. 2 years ago, training facility, midnight. Tony barely dodged a strike aimed at his ribs. Yelena moved like a viper, fast, precise, and hard. Tony twisted, bringing up his gauntlet to block her next hit, but she faked left and swept his legs out from under him. He hit the mat hard. Ow, he muttered, staring up at the ceiling. Yelena stood over him, smirking. You're slow, Stark. Tony groaned, sitting up. Yeah. I'm a genius, not a ninja. She crossed her arms. Then why are we doing this? Tony pushed himself up, rolling his sore shoulder. Because you're the only one who doesn't treat me like glass. And that was the truth. Natasha and Melina were too careful around him. The widows respected him, but none of them pushed him. Yelena didn't hold back. She scoffed. So, what? You want to get your ass kicked for fun? Tony smirked. I call it practical education. Can't always rely on the suit, can I now? Yelena shook her head, muttering in Russian, before dropping into a fighting stance again. Fine. But if you pass out, I'm not carrying you back. Tony rolled his neck. I'll have Hermes call Natasha, then. TSK, don't call her. I'll carry you, she muttered under her breath. Huh? You said something? He asked. Yeah, you better be ready for another hour of ass-kicking. She cracked her knuckles, and just like that, the first of many midnight sparring sessions began. 6 months later, it started with training. But somewhere along the way, it became something else. Yelena was the only person who didn't see him as just Tony Stark. She wasn't impressed by the money, the genius, the legacy. She treated him like a fighter. A partner, and for the first time in a long time, Tony felt like someone besides his tech, besides his armor. They trained. They fought, they talked, not about the mission. Not about the widows, but about stupid things. Favorite movie? Yelena asked one night after pinning him for the 3rd time in a row. Tony exhaled, flat on his back. Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back. Classic. She raised an eyebrow. Nerd. Thanks, he grinned. Yours? She hesitated. Then, quietly, the Iron Giant. Tony blinked. That was unexpected. He tilted his head. Didn't peg you as a big metal robot kind of girl. Yelena looked away, rubbing the back of her neck. I just. She exhaled. I liked the ending. The whole, you choose who you want to be thing. Tony's smirk faded, because he got it. She wasn't talking about the movie, she was talking about herself. The conversation stuck with him, because he realized, for the first time, that Yelena wasn't just a trained killer, she was a person still figuring herself out, just like him. 1 year later, Tony had never been great at trust, but somehow, without realizing it, he started trusting Yelena. But he wasn't stupid enough to remove the nanites from her body, not just in the training room. Everywhere, she was the only person who called him out on his bullshit and the only one who noticed when something was wrong. Like the night he collapsed in the lab, his headaches had gotten worse, but he hadn't told anyone. He figured he could handle it. Then, in the middle of running diagnostics, his vision blurred, and everything went black. When he woke up, he was in the med bay, and Yelena was sitting next to him, arms crossed, glaring. Are you stupid? She demanded. Tony blinked. Huh? You passed out in your lab, Stark, she snapped. And you didn't tell anyone you were sick? I wasn't sick, he muttered. Just tired. Yelena scoffed. Yeah, well, next time you're just tired, try not dying on the floor. Tony looked at her. Really looked at her. She was pissed. But beneath that, she was worried. Yelena didn't worry about people, but she worried about him, and that meant something. Thanks for finding me, he said quietly. Yelena rolled her eyes, but he saw the smallest smile. Yeah. Just don't make it a habit, genius. Present time, the smell of roasted chicken, garlic bread, and something suspiciously spicy hit Tony the moment he stepped into the dining hall. The room was lively, widows scattered across the tables, eating, chatting, laughing. It still felt surreal sometimes, seeing them like this, normal. They were no longer just soldiers, no longer just weapons created by the Red Room. They had personalities now. Some cracked jokes, some argued over who had the highest kill count, and some were just existing. It was weird, but the good kind of weird. Finally, Yelena's voice cut through the noise. She was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, watching him like a mother hen with a gun. Washington, D.C., Government Defense Convention. The conference hall was packed. Rows of military officials, government representatives, and corporate leaders filled the room, all gathered to witness the unveiling of the next step in national security. High-ranking members of S.H.I.E.L.D. sat at the center, among them, Howard Stark and Nick Fury. The massive screen at the front of the room flickered to life, displaying a black and red armored figure, blurry and distorted, flying through the night sky. The grainy footage had been leaked through military channels, and though it was unclear, everyone in the room had heard rumors of a highly advanced armored individual operating in secret. A few muttered amongst themselves. Is that real? Some say it took out a private rogue military facility last month. Howard remained silent, arms crossed, while Fury sat beside him, watching the footage with his usual serious no-nonsense expression. At the podium, Justin Hammer stood confidently, dressed in an expensive suit, his signature grin plastered across his face. He tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, Hammer began, his voice dripping with practiced charisma, we live in a world of unpredictable threats. Superhumans, rogue mutants, enhanced individuals, and let's not ignore the elephant in the room, this mysterious armored vigilante. The murmuring in the crowd grew louder. Now, sure, Hammer continued, pacing slightly, the idea of some metal-clad superhero flying around might sound entertaining, even comforting to some. But ask yourselves, who is he? What does he want? Can he be controlled? Silence. Exactly. Hammer snapped his fingers, and the massive screen behind him changed, displaying images of sleek, humanoid combat drones, their metallic exteriors reflecting the bright lights of the stage. Introducing the Hammer Autonomous Combat Unit, the future of warfare. There was a ripple of applause from some of the defense contractors in the crowd. Hammer beamed, pressing forward. These AI-driven units are designed to replace human soldiers in combat, eliminating unnecessary casualties and ensuring total efficiency on the battlefield. Another image appeared, showing a simulated battle where Hammer's robots were fighting against human soldiers and winning. Their tactical response time is faster than any human, their accuracy is precise, and best of all, they don't hesitate. They don't question orders. Fury's expression didn't change, but Howard shifted slightly in his seat. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, Hammer continued, raising a hand. What about superhumans? What about mutants? What about that tin can vigilante flying around in the shadows? The screen changed again, this time displaying a simulated battle between Hammer's combat units and enhanced opponents. That's where the true brilliance of this project lies. Our combat AI has been trained to counter enhanced threats. Superhuman strength? Doesn't matter when my bots can analyze weaknesses in real time and strike where it hurts the most. Flight? Energy projection? My AI learns, adapts, and neutralizes before the enemy even gets a chance. Some officials in the crowd nodded in approval. With proper funding, we can deploy these units across the country, ensuring safety and control in an era where unpredictability is a constant threat. Imagine a world where riots, superpowered criminals, and rogue elements are suppressed instantly before they can cause harm. A world where we, the government, are always one step ahead. Norman Osborn, sitting beside General Ross, clenched his fingers. He had remained quiet throughout the presentation, but now, there was interest in his eyes. One of the officials, a senior Pentagon advisor, leaned forward. You're talking about total robotic enforcement? Wouldn't that lead to unnecessary aggression? If these machines act without hesitation, what about collateral damage? Hammer grinned. Oh, believe me, sir, my team has thought about that. The AI is designed to operate within strict guidelines. No reckless endangerment, no unnecessary violence, just pure, calculated efficiency. Another official raised an eyebrow. And what about this? He gestured toward the screen displaying the blurry Iron Man footage. Hammer's expression soured slightly before he covered it up with a laugh. Oh, that? Please. Whoever that is, they're outdated compared to my machines. Some rogue tech genius with a fancy prototype? Maybe. But my bots? They're government approved. They work for you, not against you. So why waste time worrying about an unregistered metal vigilante? Once my project is completed, we will take care of this tin can. The officials exchanged glances. Howard Stark, however, remained silent. Nick Fury finally spoke, his deep voice cutting through the noise. So, let me get this straight, Fury said slowly. You want unmanned war machines patrolling the streets? Deciding who's a threat and who's not? Hammer turned toward Fury, giving his best salesman smile. That's the idea. Minimized risk, maximized control. Fury's expression didn't change. Sounds like you're trying to build an army. Hammer chuckled. An army? No, Director Fury, this isn't an army, this is the future. Howard finally spoke, his tone calm but sharp. And who owns this future, Hammer? Howard asked. Hammer paused. Excuse me? Howard leaned forward. Let's say the government funds your little project. Who owns the machines? You? The military? Some private investors? The question hung in the air. Hammer hesitated for half a second, long enough for everyone to notice. Then, he recovered. Of course, the United States government would have full control of the units. Howard's eyes narrowed slightly. That so? The murmuring in the crowd hadn't died down. If anything, it was growing louder. The prospect of autonomous war machines patrolling the streets was a controversial one. Some officials looked intrigued, others uneasy. Norman Osborn leaned slightly toward General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross and whispered something under his breath. Ross didn't react immediately. His fingers tapped against the table, his military instincts kicking in. After a moment, he gave the faintest nod, then cleared his throat. Mr. Hammer. Justin Hammer, who had been soaking in the attention, turned toward Ross with a practiced smile. Ah, General Ross. A pleasure as always. I was hoping you'd be interested in the future of military technology. Ross ignored the flattery, his voice carrying a commanding presence. Tell me, Hammer, Ross said, his tone measured. What are the chances of your robots being hacked? The room went silent. Hammer blinked, caught slightly off guard. Then, he let out a nervous chuckle. Hacked? General, please. These machines operate on an encrypted military-grade AI system, completely secure and, I didn't ask about encryption, Ross interrupted. I asked about chances. What happens if, let's say, someone, a rogue nation, a terrorist cell, or some underground hacker group, manages to override your AI? Hammer's jaw tightened, but he kept up his rehearsed act. General, I assure you, no, don't assure me. Answer me. Ross leaned forward, his eyes cold. Because if someone can hack these machines, we're not looking at a future of peace. We're looking at a goddamn slaughter. Some of the officials shifted in their seats, clearly uncomfortable. Even Norman Osborn smirked slightly, watching Hammer squirm. Hammer exhaled through his nose. Look, I get it. You're concerned. That's fair. But we have contingency plans. Firewalls upon firewalls. Remote shutdown failsafes. These bots are designed to be completely tamper-proof. Hacking them is not an option. Ross arched an eyebrow. Not an option? Nothing is ever impossible, Hammer. Technology is progressing faster each day, and we even have a flying robot around the world, which even our most advanced tech couldn't track or get a clear picture of. You know what that means, that thing or whoever is controlling it must have technology far advanced than ours. And you say, unhackable. You're telling me that no one, nowhere, will ever find a way to turn these machines against us? Hammer hesitated for a fraction of a second, and that was all Ross needed. The general turned his gaze toward the rest of the officials. These machines don't have human judgment. If someone gets control of them, they won't stop. They won't hesitate. You're not just talking about replacing soldiers, Hammer. You're talking about replacing decision-making itself. And that's a goddamn problem. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Hammer forced a grin, clearly annoyed but unwilling to show it. With all due respect, General, you're thinking in extremes. This is about progress. Efficiency. Power. Howard Stark suddenly spoke, his voice calm but firm. Power without control is a weapon pointed at the wrong people. Hammer snapped his head toward Howard, eyes narrowing slightly. What do you think about this, Mr. Stark? Let's get one thing straight, Hammer, Howard said, his fingers steepled. You're trying to sell us on security, but what you're really offering is a goddamn disaster waiting to happen. Hammer scoffed, shaking his head. Oh, come on, Howard. You, of all people, should understand progress. This isn't about danger, this is about control. Howard's eyes narrowed. Control? You're talking about machines that don't think. Don't hesitate. Don't understand the context. What happens when one of your autonomous combat units malfunctions and wipes out an entire civilian block because of a miscalculation? What happens if they see a child holding a toy gun and register it as a hostile threat? Some of the military officials shifted uncomfortably. Hammer let out a laugh, but it was strained now, forced. Come on, that's ridiculous. These bots have the best AI programming available, AI isn't human, Hammer. Howard cut him off. AI doesn't improvise. It doesn't feel. It follows a set of pre-programmed rules, and if those rules fail, it doesn't stop to think. It keeps going. Nick Fury, who had been silently watching, finally spoke up. Howard's right, Fury said, his deep voice carrying across the room. These machines aren't soldiers. Soldiers know when to disobey orders. They know when not to fire. What happens when one of these units is given an order that goes against human ethics? Hammer's grin twitched slightly, his confidence faltering for the first time. Like I said, failsafes. General Ross let out a dry chuckle. Failsafes? You mean like the ones you had for those prosthetic implants last year? The room went dead silent. Hammer froze. His face lost all color. Ross leaned forward, his presence overwhelming. You remember that, don't you, Hammer? When your cutting-edge prosthetics malfunctioned and ended up killing multiple civilians in less than a month? Because I do. Murmurs spread across the hall. Howard Stark sighed dramatically, shaking his head. Oh yeah, I remember that too. Wasn't it Hammer Industries that said, and I quote, "Our technology is foolproof and completely safe"? Hammer's jaw tightened. That was different. It was an isolated, no, it wasn't, one of the Pentagon officials cut in. The implants failed because your tech was rushed and untested. You put people in danger to make a profit. Another official, a congressman from New York, frowned. And now you want us to trust you with an army of autonomous weapons? Not a chance. The murmurs turned into open conversation. More officials spoke up, voicing their concerns, doubts, and outright opposition. Some even pulled out their own reports on Hammer Industries' past failures, faulty weapons, botched security systems, and shady dealings with foreign investors. In less than 5 minutes, the entire proposal collapsed, the funding was pulled, orders were issued to shut the project down immediately. Justin Hammer stood there, his entire face drained of blood, as everything fell apart. Norman Osborn, who had been watching quietly, finally stood up. His expression was unreadable, but the glint of amusement in his eyes was unmistakable. He went to Justin and patted his shoulder. Tough break, Hammer, Norman said with a smirk. Maybe next time, try making something that doesn't backfire in your face. Hammer clenched his jaw, his hands trembling as he watched his biggest opportunity disappear. He would not forget this, and he would not forgive. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like for latest videos.